Okay, we're live again with our Migrant Women Reality Watch. And this time we have as our guest a feminist philosopher, an academic, but also I think an activist as well, who is based in Argentina. And she kindly agreed to speak to us. Her name is María Binetti. I will not take time to introduce you more. Maybe María, you can explain a little bit about yourself first, what you do, and then I would be very interested to hear about your actual research and the area of philosophy that you're working on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this invitation, Anna. I'm pleased to share this talk with you and with all migrant humans. I'm a South American philosopher, so I share the feeling of to be in the South, in the poor South. Well, I'm trying to be a philosopher since my childhood almost. I mean, my whole life I try to think, and I love thinking. And I'm in the academy. I have a PhD in philosophy. I have a master's degree in human and gender studies. My work is focused on contemporary philosophy. I know quite well modern idealism and postmodern philosophy, French philosophy. And now, since a couple of years ago, I'm in feminist theory. I'm thinking a feminist philosophy. And well, I was comfortable in my chair and my desk when I see the real danger that we are as human because of queer ideology. So I leave my comfort desk and I decided to be activist, at least as far as I can, because I'm really concerned about the advance of that terrible ideology for human rights. So now I'm. It's a kind of new field for me to be a kind of activist because I was a desk thinker or philosopher, but now I'm in the fight with all of you and us. Mm-hmm. So that is my presentation, and I do research for the National Institute for Scientific and Technical Research here in Argentina, which is the top institute for researching scientific research. I belong to this as a member of the National Institute, and in a more concrete sense, my place of work is the University of Buenos Aires, the Gender Institute. That is my little work of place of work, although I belong to the national institution. And well, the thing is that in the Gender Institute of Buenos Aires University, I have a kind of problems because my philosophical position very critical of queer ideology, so I have had some problems and I made a complaint to the National Institution for censorship and threats and all that. So I'm in the middle of this situation, as any of us, as any thinker critical of gender and queer ideology. All of us are in my same position, and even worse. I'm fortunate to keep my work and stay there right now.
Mm-hmm. So. Okay, and what about, before we move on to queer ideology, what about your own philosophy and your position and your analysis? I mean, obviously, you must be producing most of your work in Spanish, so it is not so accessible to the English speakers. Like myself, I do not speak Spanish, but I did read one of your papers, but maybe you can tell us, because there is a very big confusion that we have right now around the concept of sex and gender. I mean, for me, it's pretty clear, but I think especially for the younger generation, and also within institutions and policy making, sex is used, gender is used interchangeably with sex. So when they want to say sex, but they actually say gender, or the other way around. Also in theory and in academia, there are various interpretations what gender is and even what sex is. So tell us about your school of thought and your own analysis about it.
Yes, right now I'm trying to think a kind of neo-realist feminism, because in philosophy now in the 21st century there is a new trend called neo-realism, or ontological term or a speculative term, but it's a realistic view in philosophy. So that is my position, realism in philosophy, and in a neo-realism. And this new trend is very critical of the before paradigm, the old paradigm, which is linguisticism or postmodernism, which is a philosophy according to which reality are text, discourses, languages. So the whole reality is the result or the effect of text, languages, discourses. And that is also for sex. Sex is a political or socio-political construction. So sex is gender. That is, this equation is the result of this postmodern constructivism or postmodern nominalism, according to which the whole reality is reducible to language or discourses or text. So the new trend in philosophy, which is neo-realism, is very critical of this constructivism, this linguistic term, according to which reality is reducible to text or languages or discourses. And the first principle of the new realism is that reality is irreducible to text or to discourses or to language. So reality exceeds all discourses. It's much more than language, a business or matter of language. It's a mix, it's a synthesis of many elements and forces. One of them is language, because reality is crossed by language. Language is transversal to, or culture is transversal to the whole reality, but it is not the only element or force in reality. There are much more elements as biology and nature, spirit, if you thinking, psychic elements. So reality is a synthesis of many elements all together, all in interaction, in reciprocal action, which cross each other, compenetrate each other. So reality is much more than a business of languages. So that is the main principle of this realism. So I'm trying to think a feminist neo-realism to support a strong concept of human, irreducible to language, irreducible to gender or gender identification, as a complex category with many elements, biological, material, cultural as well, but definitely irreducible to a matter of language or discourses. That is the idea of gender, that humans are just a linguistic practice, a normative category.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but speaking about the sexual difference between women and men, we have a quote from your paper on top of our post where you ask the question how we think about. We know that there is a difference, and we know that the patriarchal system would try to use this to instrumentalize this system in order to create and justify the system of power, which is external, and which we would normally call gender, or I would call gender. And so now that we shifted, or some shifted in understanding of what gender is, when it became some inner feelings, how do we actually speak about the sexual difference between women and men, according to your theory or your position?
My position is feminism of sexual difference. It is a line stream inside feminism, which is called feminism of sexual difference. It's a very well-known feminism. It's a strong feminism which comes from the 70s French postmodern field. I can mention authors like Lucy Garay, which is probably the best figure in this feminism of sexual difference, or some Italians, Rosi Braidotti, for example, or Elizabeth Gross in Australia, or Luisa Muraro in Italy. So all of them are representative of this sexual difference feminism. And the thing is that the category of sexual difference in feminism is an overcoming of this representative framework in which men and women are opposite. You have women is the passive, the sensitive, the emotional, the obscure materiality identified with nature, with the passive materia, and man is identified with the light, the action, the rationality, the positive. So that is the framework in patriarchy. Mm-hmm. That is the patriarchal framework. But feminists of sexual difference overcome this dualism and this opposition and rethink human in inequality. Difference in sexual difference, feminist means equality, means to try to think a difference in itself as active process inequality with men. So feminists overcome this dualistic model, which is gender model, because that is gender, that women and men are opposed and exclusive. That is gender. Feminists of sexual difference overcome this. So sexual difference is for me, is the crucial category to use in this or to think in this moment, in which seems that we are between a gender, which is a cultural construction, and a sex, which is a biological and natural element. That is a very, very root and very dualistic paradigm, because actually human is both together and in interaction. We cannot split. We can analyze separately, but we are a same person, and we have all aspects together. And sex, our biological sex, is immanent to gender, because gender is not an abstract entity. Gender comes from our biological body, from our bodies. So sex and gender are really together, and this connection and this synthesis is that we call sexual difference. Sexual difference is a synthetic category which includes material, biological, cultural, spiritual, existential, many dimensions, many fields of existence, of our entire existence, because it is a synthetic concept, a synthetic category. So from sexual difference, we can overcome the stereotype of gender without ceasing to be human. We are human, and as human, we can we can overcome these awful stereotypes, which are called gender. So sexual difference is a more rich category for me to think our position as human and overcome the subordinate role in a patriarchal society as a human, not living humanhood. That is queer theory. Queer theory said that human is gender, so it's an old-fashioned category, a normative category, product of discourses. So we have to be rid of that awful category called human, and that is what we are living now. No, the concept of human is an old-fashioned, and we have to stop it and overcome that. But my position is that as human, we can be free because our sexual difference is this force, this energy to be free of the stereotype as human. I think I'm clear.
Well, it's quite difficult. It's clear for me because maybe I have some background knowledge. I don't think it is as clear for anybody who hears this kind of discussion for the first time. And I think it may be not clear because from my point of view, we are only exposed to the theories, at least this is most of the things that we see in the media, in the Anglophone world, where majority of understanding that there is a very, very clear separation between sex or biological body or the body and gender, which we, a lot of feminists, they would say that it is just something completely external. And because it is external, it's possible to get rid of it as well. And on the other hand, we have people who are saying, no, it's entirely internal. It's only exists inside my head, or I do not know, inside my soul or something like this. And I think that this is why I wanted to ask you, why do you think we are in this situation? You brought up several names from French philosophers to Italian, and they're not so prominent, at least in the Anglophone world. And the theories that you were speaking about now, they're not so well articulated. And I was wondering, from your perspective, also being, we are in Europe, you're in Latin America, why do you think one discourse, academic, like a theory, became dominant over the other?
I mean, the dominant discourse is the discourse of gender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now the discourse of gender identity, mm-hmm. which is a turning point from the feminist perspective. Because in feminism, what happened is that my perspective is more philosophical than political. I mean, politically speaking, we can separate gender as a political structure that you want to abolish. But philosophically, thinking in terms of reality, I have to think the reality as a synthetic movement, as a synthetic process. So gender is not out of us, gender is in us. And gender is that that rule that we wanna take out. So in philosophical terms, I cannot think sex, biological sex on the one hand, and culture structure on the one hand, because that would be dualism, a dualistic paradigm. And me as human is one thing. Both are together. And because both are together and I'm a free person, I can overcome some aspect, I can keep other, and I can be free as a human from the stereotype. But one thing is, if you are thinking in political terms, and other is to try to think reality as an whole and synthetic and dynamic process. So, but politically speaking, you are right. Gender is the common view. Gender is the institution. I mean, and it's the institution. I have to say that well, my critical position about of gender is that gender was used particularly by United Nations to invisibilize to human. I mean, gender is a neutral category. And what is really gender? I don't know what is really gender. Gender now is everything and nothing at all at the same time. So I'm as philosopher, I'm critical of gender category because behind that you conceal human. I'm clear.
Yes, for me it's clear, and we are going to speak about the United Nations a bit later. I would like to go back to it. But now I wanted to ask you, so okay, we have sex, we have gender, and we have different views on it. And definitely it's interesting what you clarified, that there is, of course, a political position and then there is a philosophical analysis of it. And for me, it's completely clear. How did we move from gender to gender identity? When did this happen? Do you know?
This happened because a radicalization of this constructive and linguistic postmodernity. Because at certain moment you keep together sex and gender. In the first time of gender politics, you keep together. Gender was the stereotype imposed to sex. So gender comes from outside to inside, from the society to biological bodies. That is the problem that I meant before, that this thinking is a kind of dualistic and external thinking. From the outside, gender is imposed to women. So, but anyway, this combination, it was unstable and at some moment was reducible to culture, because someone, which is Judith Butler, but basically Judith Butler said, no, there is not a biological sex before gender, before culture. This sex is the culture. So sex is gender. So this dualism was reduced to one element, which is culture. So there is just culture because we never know a sex without the culture. We always know sex in the culture. So sex was reduced to culture. That is a radicalization of this linguistic framework, which is postmodernity as philosophy. And now we just have gender, and gender became my own feeling, my own desired, private and intimate desire. So gender is now what I wanna be in the individualistic sense of the. So gender in feminist theory is a power structure between women and men. But now in queer ideology, it's just my internal feeling to be this stereotype, which is women, or this stereotype, which is male. Because gender became a kind of entity, social entity, free to choose for everybody. I can choose this stereotype of male, so I identified with that stereotype and I am male. Or the other side, I'm identified with that stereotype of gender, and so I became that stereotype, because we don't have this synthetic view of reality. We just have entities, abstract and stereotype entities, which are called gender.
Mm-hmm. And in practical terms, so, okay, this is a theory, but what does it mean in practical terms? And let's be specific. Let's speak about Argentina. What does it mean in terms of your laws, policy making? I don't know, anything that you think is important for women's rights or for human rights generally?
The direct conclusion, result of this philosophical position is the abolition of human. And the abolition of human politically, legally, and conceptually speaking. Because conceptually speaking, human is just a gender. And a gender is an entity with I can identify. So it's nothing. Human is nothing more than a stereotype or an entity floating to choose. So the equation sex and gender identity, or human and gender identity, this equation means the abolition of human as political and legal subject. That is what we are seeing everywhere, particularly in my country, Argentina, which is an icon of this ideology. I don't know why, maybe because we are poor and in the south, and our culture is very poor in relation to others. So we are in this situation colonized very easily by this ideology. We have a gender identity law, which is the first law of this kind in the world. The law was approved in 2012, and this law allows people to change the ID without any requirement, just expressing their own desire to change the ID. We have many kids under 6 years old with new ID. I mean, sex new ID, from women to men or from men to women sex.
You mean there is no age restrictions at all? It can be a 3-year-old child and you can change their birth certificate. It was born a boy and you can say it was born a girl.
We have many cases. Last year it was 5 years old, 6 years old, because mothers declare that the kids are trans because the girl like, I don't know, cars or football, and the boy likes dolls and pink. And so it is a very confused situation, but the reality is that we have many kids in this situation, under 6, 5, 4, and hormone blockers treatment start at 11, are allowed to start at 11 years old, and surgery hormones at 13, and surgeries in kids depends of the parents, the decision of the parents, the authorization of, if not the parents, the church. The church can authorize the surgeries.
Who, excuse me, the church?
No, the church.
The judge. Yes, okay. I was like, whoa, what church has to do with this?
No, the church, fortunately, the church is more healthy than that, at least by now. But we have the medicalization of the childhood, of course, we have surgeries for childhood, but once you equate sex and gender identity, you have to adjust to this new conceptualization the whole legal system. Because the whole legal system has to be adjusted to this new equation, sex, gender identity. Sex equal to gender identity. So from that point starts a process of changing legislation, which goes in the line of erasing human category. Now, instead of human, we have person or people. For example, last week it was a case of a bill in my country, a bill presented to the Congress to replace the category of pregnant woman by pregnant person. That is just one case. Mm-hmm. The whole legislation is changing, and because if you keep women as women, pregnant women, you discriminate other subjects which identifies maybe like with a male which is pregnant. So we cannot keep the category of women because sex is a discriminatory category. It's a category that doesn't allow the full recognition of other identity, which are pregnant, for example, or who are mothers or fathers, defined independently of their sex because of just personal and subjective identification. So now we are in the process to change the whole legal systems, erasing human as legal category. And in 2018, we had a bill with the proposal to abolish the category of sex in all documentation, in all official documentation. Just erase sex because it's a discriminatory category and, well, a violent category against minorities, sexual minorities, and these new trans people. So,
did it go through, this bill?
No, but probably it will be presented again in this new period of. So the situation is very, very difficult, and the other two big projects which are in the middle of this legal change is surrogacy. Last week it was presented in my country, in Argentina, the surrogacy bill. Surrogacy and regulation of prostitution, which is also a huge pressure here in Argentina to regulate or decriminalize or legalize. I don't know, but it is been a huge pressure to legalize prostitution, pimping, I mean, and surrogacy because of the rights of trans people who has the right to be father or mother at the cost of human bodies, at the cost of human sexual and reproductive exploitation.
So, if you abolish the category of sex or a category of woman, then you will not even know who is exploited through surrogacy because it will be just person X or person Y.
And your body, according to postmodern philosophy, is just a construction. It's a social construction. So your body is nothing. The meaning, the sense of the body, the sexual body, the sex body, comes from outside, from the culture. So your body has no immanent internal meaning. And besides that, there is a kind of dissociation between your body and your mind, because your mind is allowed to identify and represent anything, anybody, and your body means nothing. So there is a kind of dissociation between mind and body, as your mind were outside your body, as your body means nothing and your mind is the constructor of meanings independent of you are. This idea of your own body and what that is the.
And this is not something unique only to Argentina. As far as I know, it happens in many countries in Latin America. Can you tell us more about the whole continent?
Argentina was the first country in Latin America and in the world to have this kind of identity law without any condition, without just expressing. And respect of Latin America, Argentina has a key position. It's a kind of focus of radiation of this idea. So now Brazil is almost in our same situation. Although the identity law was a year later than in Argentina, but Brazil is in the same situation, and the rest of Latin America is doing this same process. And Argentina is like a leader of this ideology in our south, in South America. So I feel that sometimes I feel that it is a new. Well, we talked with you yesterday. This is a new coloniality, especially in the south, and I think this like a new extractivism. I mean, extractivism in the meaning of this extraction of our reproductive and sexual capacities. Women are now the raw material for this new extractivism, in which our bodies are the raw material to the system, and the system is needing now to buy and sell bodies and sexualities. That is the arrival point of this ideology, to put in the market, in the free market, our own bodies, to buy and sell capacities, organs, members, because bodies are completely dissociated, because there is not an integration, this concept of reality which integrates the whole person in a unity. We have just parts, members, organs. So the big business of the system now is to sell and buy bodies, human bodies. That is what we call transhumanism, in other terms.
No, not everybody knows what transhumanism is. I'm sure somebody hears it for the first time.
Transhumanism, I read transgenderism as a chapter of transhumanism. Transhumanism is this ideology which dreams with seaborn subjectivities, seaborn subject or cyberhuman, this mix of cyber robots and human beings. So that is a huge business for Silicon Valley. I mean, for big companies which are thinking to produce human beings, and even genetically speaking, with the addition of EDN, the addition and copyright in our DNA. Well, this production of a new human being, which is maybe no more human being but trans human being.
And when you mentioned the situation in Argentina and in Latin America, and from my perspective, I'm not a philosopher. I like to philosophize, but I don't work in academia. And what I work with or what I'm more exposed to is the way how laws are passed and how certain legislative changes are introduced and how different lobbyist groups are working around legislators. And it's just curious that this should happen to Latin America. And I don't think many people realize it, the extent to which it is spread in Latin America and particularly in Argentina. And do you have any explanation for this, how it was done and why Latin America became such an epicenter of this?
Particularly Argentina. I mean, Argentina was the first country. At that moment, in 2012, we had a populist government, left populism. Like now we have the same government, and just now the same ideology go ahead strongly, because we have the same government than in 2012 when ID legislation appeared. And once can be this populism spreads all over the Latin America. Other explanation can be our subcultural background, because here we don't have a strong feminist tradition. We just copy fashions from abroad. So we copied Spanish feminism a little bit, but we copy fashions and American fashion, European fashions. So we don't have a strong background and a strong trajectory and a strong feminism in my country. So feminism suddenly changed, and we have queer ideology without feminism at all in the universities, in the academia. The academia is a big epicenter of queer ideology, and feminism, there is no more, because it was weak. It was a weak feminism. We don't have abortion, and we have ID, and we have a surrogacy bill presented to the Congress without having abortion, for example. That does explain how weak is our feminism. And other reason, maybe it is that the poor South is the raw material for, I don't know, for sex industry in the North. I mean, sex and reproductive industry in the North. We are the raw material for that. So probably these rich organizations are very focused on the South and South America, because they see they are a good business for surrogacy and sexual tourism, maybe, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you brought up the issue of abortion, because it's exactly the same situation when they passed the first gender identity laws in both in Ireland and in Malta in Europe. They were the two countries. I mean, in Malta still abortion is not legal. In Ireland it became eventually legal, but it was much later after they introduced the gender identity. So it's an interesting pattern there.
And even we have now a bill for surrogacy, and we have a bill to replace a pregnant woman by pregnant people or person, and we don't have even a woman to decide freely to be mother or not. That explains our really big cultural and political background, and that is a good business for the North. I mean, for the North, I mean, for this neoliberalism, which is working with postmodern constructivism. All are together now. Liberalism, neoliberalism, and this constructive view of the society, which is a relativism, a moral and political relativism. You are what you want to be. You are what you imagine, and the justice is what a community or a group decides to be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what about the role of international agencies? I am particularly interested in this because we see their involvement in other areas, in particularly the sex trade. We are under no illusion how instrumental certain United Nations agencies are, in particular UNDP and UNFPA and UNAIDS, and UN Women to a large extent, who doesn't have, or until a few days ago, couldn't come up with any clear position on prostitution. And we know that they are very powerful agencies, maybe not so much UN Women, but like UNAIDS, traditionally and for many years exerted very strong influence, particularly on civil society organizations. And we know how destructive their influence has been in the area of promoting normalization of prostitution. And I'm wondering, what was their role, or what is their role in the situation with regards to the gender identity and promotion of the laws?
It's crucial. It's the very influential institution here in Argentina. UN and when Argentina asked for money outside, when Argentina signed this contract for money at the international funding, in this contract you have the project, the bills you have to propose to your people. So in the same contract you have the money and the social issues. That is a way to this ideology come in. And for example, the Open Society Foundation, which is promoting legalization of prostitution and I guess surrogacy as well, is funding at least one very important organization of human rights here in Argentina. So the organization of human rights, almost all are in favor of ID and legalization of prostitution, and probably, I guess, surrogacy, because all is the same system, ideological and economical system. So it's crucial the role of this international organization to. Amnesty is the same. Amnesty Save the Children is proposing the trans kids and the medicalization of trans kids to have the body they want. And another very influential organization is the Organization of American States. The Inter-American Commission had a report about LGBTB community, in which says that sex is a discriminatory, false, and unscientific category. And but that is what our bill about erasing sex from all documents says, that sex is a discriminatory category because of the diversity's body, and it's scientific because it is a cultural construct, and is false, and so we have to erase sex, and with sex we have to erase the whole legal system on favor of human based on sex. So we are in the middle of that process. It's a very, very serious subject, and well, here we are.
Right. Okay, let's have some positive in this picture. You mentioned before about this new realistic feminism, neo-realistic feminism, something like this. I haven't.
That is my own project now, to think this new feminist realism, because that is exactly what we need, a real concept of human out of these cultural and linguistic mechanisms.
And when you said in the beginning that there is a growing number of feminists who are adopting this theory or coming out of queer theory, so is it the same in Argentina? Is there any opposition or debate or analysis? Because here in Europe, there are some countries, definitely the UK is leading the way, but now there is a big debate happening in Spain as well. What's happening in Argentina in this regard?
Not yet, but I guess I trust that slowly we will see what is happening now in Spain, which is the field that we see. We look at Spain. Mm-hmm. So it is very good news to have this debate in Spain. So in Argentina, we are starting. You see, I'm going to tell to you and to the audience that we have our campaña Argentina por el reconocimiento de los derechos de las mujeres en base al sexo, which is our brand of Women Human Rights Campaign. Is our local expression of the human rights campaign. We start with this campaign 2 months ago. We have now 470 signatories right now in our campaign, and we are starting to move the campaign and to spread and to have webinars and all that to spread the critical position about this ideology. What happened is a very huge campaign of censorship and defamation. For example, in the academy, when the first time I said I'm critical of gender ideology, the other day I got the accusation of transphobia and prejudice and biologicism, essentialism, and all that levels. So we have to fight against that and to speak up in a spate of that. So, but I trust that we are starting in this process of critical approaches, and I hope we manage to install a real debate and a real criticism. Mm-hmm. I trust. I hope.
Well, we hope as well. We also trust. Maria, we almost spent 1 hour, almost 1 hour. It was passed very fast. I learned a lot of new things. Thank you so much. Do you want to say something else? I mean, our audience, it's quite mixed. We probably have some migrant women who would watch it, and probably some of our partners, maybe some policymakers. Is there any message that you would like to leave with us all the way from Buenos Aires?
I want to say that be together, stay together. This battle is international and collective. We have to be together, all women all over the world. And I want to say the message, the main message of feminism, of the sexual difference, which is that women is a positive concept. To be women is a richness, is a potency, is a positive reality, and being woman as human, we can change many things. So remember that we are a richness, we are a positive and strong reality, and we have a positive energy to create something new. So we are not a gender stereotype, we are real and our potency is huge. So trust that and be strong and stay together to change this awful system and colonization.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really, good luck to you in your work, and thank you for your courage and for your support and for speaking out. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you, Maria.
Bye. Thank you for
Bye.
this wonderful invitation.
Thanks.